Welcome to the first episode of CFO Insights, the podcast that brings you the latest insights and trends in the world of finance. I'm your host, Roel Boons, an assurance director at PwC, where I am deeply involved in the transformation of our audit practice. In today's episode, we dive into the fascinating intersection of technology and finance. But before we begin, let me introduce our two experts joining us today. First, we have Nick van den Bosch, a director in our finance transformation practice, with a focus on the digitization of the finance function. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Roel. Thank you.
With a deep understanding of financial processes and systems, Nick certainly brings a unique perspective to the table. And joining Nick is Michiel de Keizer. Hello.
Hi Roel. Thanks for having me.
A renowned expert in the field of artificial intelligence. With a background in data science and a passion for exploring the potential of AI, Michiel has been at the forefront of driving innovation at PwC and our clients. Together, Michiel and Nick will guide us through the world of AI and its impact on CFOs and finance processes. We'll explore the transformative power of AI, its implications for financial decision-making, and how CFOs can leverage this technology to drive efficiency and strategic growth. So, whether you are a CFO looking to stay ahead of the curve, or whether you're simply curious about the future of finance, this episode of CFO Insights is for you. So, let's dive right in and explore the world of AI. But perhaps first, what is Gen AI and how can it help businesses?
Yeah, that's already a very good question, because I think talking to a lot of people in the industry, you more and more realize that a lot of terms are being used through each other. AI, machine learning, deep learning, generative AI, AI in general. Where does the difference lie? Well, actually, AI is the umbrella term for everything that is AI related, and AI is actually, it stands for artificial intelligence. So it's a software system that is being trained and that is not rule based, but that is being trained on data. And that automatically derives certain rules that then can apply on for instance, decision making. You have machine learning, which is like a specific field, that has been, where actually a lot of data is being used to create the algorithm, to derive the rules, and where deep learning even goes a step further, where it becomes so complex, which we call, so based on neural networks, basically. So that means that it becomes so complex that there's a lot of parameters where actually as a human, you cannot understand anymore, how decisions are being taken. And actually generative AI, or Gen AI is actually a specific field within the deep learning spectrum, where the word says it itself, where it covers all the algorithms, the tools that can generate new content. And new content can mean very different things. We all know ChatGPT, basically creating mainly text. There's other algorithms that create images. It can be voice, it can be music, can be even games, code, and so on and so on. So generative AI is a specific field within the deep learning spectrum, and the wider field of machine learning and AI that that allows you to generate new content, basically.
Michiel, is it fair to say that with what we've seen on Gen AI the last months, AI is now becoming more and more accessible to not just data sciences or technology people, but also in this case, for example, the finance function within a company?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think especially since the launch of ChatGPT, what we see is that AI has become, especially generative AI, has become very accessible. AI already exists since the 50s as a term. Since then, a lot of developments have happened, but mainly in the field and taken up by specialists called typically data engineers, data scientists. Yeah, with the launch of ChatGPT, what we see is actually that everybody is adopting this technology. Everybody is using these tools, from somebody that is very technology savvy to to people that are very technology unsavvy. Going in every function of another organization, from finance to HR to procurement, and so on and so on. That's, I think, the big impact that ChatGPT and generative AI in general has nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah. So perhaps driving it or bringing it immediately to our audience. So in terms of artificial intelligence, what is the added value for implementing that for CFOs, and how do you see CFOs currently looking towards this technology?
Yeah, I think what we see in general is that there are three big benefits where Gen AI can help the finance function. The first one is around efficiency. So this is about certain processes that can be automated, can be made more efficient. If I think about finance, it could be, for example, processing invoices. It could be account reconciliations. That's the first one. The second one, it's more about better decision making and better insights. So AI can help to generate insights faster, but can also help to find, for example, trends in data, or link internal financial, non-financial data with external data in a way that a human couldn't. So it's faster insights, but also better insights. And then the third one is more around compliance. So AI is able to collect and analyze large amounts of data, and then, for example, identify potential outliers or errors that could lead to certain legal or regulatory issues. To bring it back to your question on CFO specifically and how they are looking at it, we every other year with CFO, with PwC, we do a CFO pulse survey, and we've seen in our latest one that there's a real appetite and willingness among CFOs to invest in it. We see, for example, around 70% of CFOs are currently planning to invest in digital transformation of their finance function, leveraging AI and other technologies. But we also see that already 50% say that they're already in the process of using, for example, predictive models or machine learning for financial forecasting. So we see there's a real willingness to adopt the new technologies, to invest. Yet at the same time, when we are on the ground working with our clients, we also see that there's still a long way to go. Some companies have already taken some initial steps on the journey. Some are a little bit further ahead, but in general, I think we're more in the exploration phase of AI and Gen AI, and still a lot of CFOs and other finance leaders are looking on how can this now help our finance function.
Yeah, I can certainly echo that, Nick. In essence, I'm an audit director. So in audit, we are, for example, currently using AI to review the IFRS financial statements, really looking at those statements against the required disclosures, what the framework needs, and investigating if there are any significant discrepancies. But also at my clients, a lot of my clients really have just finished or are still in the process of implementing the RPA solutions and grasping those first benefits of RPA. But really at the moment, they are entering the exploratory phase, really entering the first experiments, handing over a version of ChatGPT to their employees to really get those employees only up to speed on what the technology and can offer, what the potential is of that technology. But I do hear a lot of the CFOs that I talk to wondering on how do I now take the next step? How do I give my people the mandate? Do I do it from a top-down perspective and require them? Or do I try a more bottom-up idea? Any views on this dilemma?
Well, I mean, I think the risks and challenges are there, right? I mean, there's many different dimensions, and I think it's very important to be very well aware of what are the challenges when it comes to implementing AI. I think you need to take that along as from the start, as from the first step that you're taking, and then we're talking about things like responsible AI, and that exists in different dimensions. AI needs to be lawful, needs to be compliant, ethical, also profitable, and I think that's a very important point that sometimes is forgotten. A lot of POCs are started and a lot of things are tested, but okay, is it actually gonna bring some added value? It's not profit as in it should create top line growth, but it needs to have added value. It can be monetary added value, but it can also be societal in the context of a public sector client, for instance. Now, in terms of getting started, I think it's important also to take a couple of other things into consideration. Definitely making sure that your foundation is in place, thinking about security, data access, data quality is definitely an important point, especially with things like Copilot. You're basically going to reuse your data within your organization's context, run that through the AI and get insights or get answers on the questions that you have. So, of course, garbage in, garbage out principle still exists, right? So that's definitely an important point. And to address this, I think it's important that you first of all realize that it's still with people that we're working, and that it's still people that is going to be in the driving seats. So selecting the right use cases also means working with the right people as from the start, to make sure that you take the first step in adoption, and making sure that you have the right use cases that can help the organization getting up to speed. But working with people also means that we should realize, and we should always take the assumption that the AI will not take over what the people are doing per se end to end.
And I think I can build on that, because you mentioned use cases, you mentioned proof of concept, you mentioned people involvement. Maybe to now make it very concrete. I think there's a number of use cases we identified and that we've seen clients working on initial proof of concepts within the area of finance, and maybe two I wanted to highlight. The first one is around variance analysis. So typically the process of variance analysis is on a monthly basis. You get your financial statements, you look at the delta, someone is diving into it, maybe going into the ledger, looking at the underlying data to be able to explain these variances. And then either in Excel or in PowerPoint, that person is then writing the commentary, putting it all together. Typically a very time-consuming process. With AI technologies, a number of these steps can be automated. For example, when it comes to the initial commentary generation, AI can take what you're seeing in the financial data and actually translate it into language and already pre-fill, for example, your typical PowerPoint template with the explanations. But it can also go further, and it can deep dive into the data and really look for explanations on some of these variances, maybe even explanations that you as a human would not be able to find. So really dive into the data, dive into the details, and come up with certain suggestions. And that's, again, where you still have the human touch. There are ways of interacting with it where it says, for example, hey, I think we can look at this and this and this data to explain this. Do you agree? Yes, no. And it's kind of an interaction like ChatGPT, between the bot and, for example, the FP&A analyst to get to a result faster. So that's one use case, more in the FP&A area. Another one, maybe more in the accounting area, is, for example, the creation of journal entries. Again, today, often a fairly manual process where an accountant is looking at a PO or an invoice and is then determining the appropriate journal entry that needs to be made in the ERP system. Again, here with AI bots, they can consume that data. They can propose the journal entries to be made. And then again, you can have sort of manual interaction. You could say, for example, journal entries below a certain threshold. It's actually the bot itself posting it in the ERP. But if it's above a certain threshold, AI proposes the journal entry. You still have an accountant coming in, validating it and posting it. So you still keep that human element, that human control. But where it's not needed, you try to automate as much as possible. So those are just two use cases in the finance area. And something we've done with PwC is actually, we took a full taxonomy of finance processes, across source to pay, order to cash, record to report. And we try to identify where do we see sub-processes that have the highest value in terms of investing in AI. And it's something we use to help our clients to get started, to maybe identify where do we first want to do some proof of concepts. And that's actually maybe a question I also wanted to ask to you, Michiel. You mentioned the proof of concepts. How do clients typically start? Is it indeed...
If I may just comment, one observation I had, Nick, when I heard you talk, it's indeed, it's not only more faster, but if I also hear you properly, it's also adding really to the experience of the users, I think. Because I heard you say, if you go back to those variance analysis, it's really people otherwise sifting through reports, manual, tedious work. You're almost implementing sort of, not gamification, but at least talking almost a natural conversation to end up to the results. So it's certainly interesting use cases actually that I've heard. But then I do also hear at the same point, and that's my auditor hat perhaps coming on, but making it auditable and indeed having that validation by the people. So it's not only the technology, but to be honest, it's still the people that play a big part in this obviously as well as Michiel, as you said, the governance as well to ensure that compliance.
Yes. In a lot of cases, you just look at the AI as your assistant. That's why also Microsoft calls it the co-pilot. It's not the pilot, it's the co-pilot. It assists you. It will help you to accelerate, maybe even to increase the quality, but you're still the pilot. I mean, you're still the one validating, signing off, checking on, and maybe adding some stuff, editing. And so that human-centric view of how AI can actually help our organizations moving forward is, I think, a very important one and actually a starting point to move ahead, because it also makes sure that you involve those people as from the start, which is a key thing for adoption going further.
But indeed, and then that brings us back then again to Nick's question that I been interrupted. Sorry, Nick.
No, of course.
But just perhaps good to know, like, where do we as a CFO now really start with? How do you begin?
Maybe to finalize the question that I was asking is it better to start small, do some proof of concepts, or do you say, Michiel, no, typically we see, you need to have a large program in place and make an initial large investment? I think that's the point.
Well, I think the maybe expected consulting answer is it depends, or it's all that together. But in the end, it's the two together basically. So what you should not do is approach it from a technology point of view. That's for sure. You should look at it from a business point of view, from what the CFO and his team are doing. So looking at the use cases at first and identifying those and assessing whether certain use cases are maybe more easily to realize than others, whether some are maybe a bit more bringing more added value than others, making that assessment as first. But that's something that can basically do in one workshop, right? And from there you can start, and then it's looking at how will we now realize those use cases? Maybe there's already tools available within the organization that you can start playing around with. Maybe there's not, and you should build something yourself using the platforms that are available, like Microsoft Azure, or maybe there are things available in the market. So that's the second step. Of course, while you're doing so, you can start testing things out. You can start doing a POC, making something tangible, which will actually create some enthusiasm. Maybe that's also important. But while you're doing so, it's important to also take a couple of things in parallel, as in making sure that you have the right foundation. Right foundation means don't just do POCs without also thinking about the ethical side of what you're doing. Don't just do POCs without thinking about, is it compliant, what we are doing. Don't just do POCs from a technical perspective without involving the business that is going to be impacted. So change, adoption, security is another element. So you need to take those things along with you, while already trying to do concrete stuff. So it's not the one or the other. It's a bit the same, but you should also avoid that you make it a big program, that it slows everything down, and that you overthink everything before you even start. I think doing some POCs can also help you learn and build those policies that you need, build those controls that you need, and learn what works, what doesn't work, what you have and what you don't have.
Maybe a quick clarification for some people in the audience that are not familiar with the word POC, because we use it every day. POC is basically abbreviation for proof of concept. Yeah. So it means you create a first smaller use case to prove the technology works, and then you can build further on it. That's what we mean when we say POC.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think there it's important to select the right use cases also as from the start, because we are all enthusiasts here in the room, and we sometimes assume too much that everybody's enthusiastic, but that's not the case, right? There are people that are skeptical, there are people that are afraid. If you talk about efficiency gains, well, people think time savings, well, will I still be needed in the future? I don't think it will go that fast, that a lot of people will be, let's say, replaced by AI. As I said, it's still a co-pilot. But taking that skepticism, that fear away is also by starting to select the right use cases where you work with the right people, but communicate broadly and show the added value that it can bring for everyone, basically. So you can take that fear away, that you can get it replaced by enthusiasm along the organization. And that's actually where it's very important to start with, to select the right use cases with the right people, but also build the right communication around it, so it's not kept isolated. And that's super important. And most questions that we get today about tools like, for instance, Copilot is not about how do I buy the licenses, because that's the easy part, right? But how do I get it used by everyone? And how do I create the enthusiasm? How do I make sure that the all-stain principle starts to work, basically, and that the enthusiasm spreads across the organization? And that's the key question that we're getting today, next to all the other things on security and so on.
Yeah. Okay, so same as everything else, the change management remains a big aspect. Okay. And in terms of, Michiel, in terms of what we are doing to help clients, how is PwC, how are we now helping our clients to make AI accessible?
Yeah, I think it sits in very many different areas. First of all, I think we're also our first best client, let's say. So we're also thinking ourselves on how to do the things that we do on a day-to-day basis for our clients in a different way. So that's also a way of bringing AI to our client and reinventing ourselves and reinventing in the things that we do and the way we do them. We have, amongst others, now ChatPWC, our own ChatGPT environment that we use, that all our consultants are using a lot. To do data analysis, to create documents, or at least a starting point for those documents. So that's one part. And then secondly, we have the services themselves that we bring to clients, and it sits in many, many, many different dimensions. The core is, of course, looking at what can be done with AI. So basically the use cases and how they can be realized. But then there's a lot of things coming with that. As I already mentioned, there's security, there's change management, there's compliance, even tax and incentives. Sometimes if the product needs to be developed, there can be a case for getting some incentives from the government. So it really sits in all domains of the organization that we can help our clients with. And basically now we get a lot of questions to do in workshops to identify use cases and to do proof of concepts. But yeah, of course, going along, it will sit in all the different services that we bring, and all the side things that we typically also bring along with other digital transformations or other large scale transformations.
Lots of interesting examples, lots of potential out there. Now, going back to the finance function, similar to all other functions, I assume it will evolve significantly. How do you guys see AI changing the finance function in the future? And well, already said the impact on the finance professionals.
It's a very good question, and obviously the finance function has been going through transformation for decades already. I mean, it started obviously way back when with the introduction of ERP systems, and over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of new cloud technologies that have been emerging. Really feel that AI and Gen AI now can really supercharge that transformation. And what we typically talk about is the pyramid being turned upside down. What do I mean by that? Traditionally, if you think about the activities of finance within the company, it's sort of a pyramid. At the bottom, you have your transactional processing, often very time-consuming, effort-intensive processes. Above that, you have your core finance processes like management reporting, like your consolidation, like planning and budgeting. And then at the top, you have really driving strategy and insights, really being a strategic business partner. In the past, that's typically where the least amount of time was spent because there was just no time left within the organization. Technologies like AI and others can really turn that upside down, where if you think about the bottom of the pyramid, the transactional processing, you try to automate it as much as possible. So you're only spending really the time that's needed. Then in the middle, you still have your core processes like consolidation, planning, and budgeting. But then at the top, because you free up so much time of your finance employees, you get much more time to spend really on being a strategic business partner, driving forward-looking insights, etc. Again, also aided by technologies like AI to do, for example, more predictive analysis. So that's what I mean by turning the pyramid upside down and really using AI as a means for finance to become that strategic business partner that it wants to be towards the CEO, towards marketing, towards operations, etc. So yeah, we really feel like I said earlier, all companies are on a journey or starting on the journey, but within, I would call it kind of a medium-term horizon, the coming 3 to 5 years, there will be almost a revolution in the way finance processes will transform.
Yeah, no, definitely, and then certainly important to be part of that journey and to supercharge. Making sure the pyramid is turned upside down.
It's an important point you say be part of the journey because this is really going to become a competitive advantage. If you think about a lot of companies, a lot of industries today are encountering a lot of cost pressures and are looking at ways to improve their margins. AI can really be one of those levers to lower your costs internally and to remain competitive and relevant on the market. So it's not a nice to have, but I think it's a hard requirement if companies want to stay competitive and relevant.
And for some of them, it will be really disrupting as well. So we already see business models being disrupted as we speak, especially when the company is the middleman with AI, not only Gen AI. It's going to be disrupting, and those companies really need to think about their position in the markets. Yeah.
Okay. No, gentlemen, thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. With this, I think we come to the end of this episode. So perhaps good to take a quick reflection on the key themes we talked about today. I think we first touched on the world of AI, what it really means, Gen AI and the various technologies that are really reshaping, I think, the landscape of finance, automating repetitive tasks, to making sure that we move from there to providing really these advanced analytics, almost predictive capabilities. So AI can really empower those CFOs and finance professionals to really make more informed decisions and to help them drive strategic growth. I think throughout the discussion, you guys have really highlighted the profound impact that AI will have on the role of finance, not being confined anymore to traditional finance management, but becoming the strategic partners they've always talked about, and becoming them even more by leveraging the AI to gain deeper insights and drive the innovation within the organization as well. So helping streamline processes, reducing those errors, enhancing efficiency, but I think also improving a bit the fun in finance to a certain extent as well. Having those conversations rather than digging through reports ever and ever. So focusing on strategic planning as well. I think you guys were really good in bringing these concepts to life and sharing number of examples of things that we see out there already and that we help implement to really take those tangible benefits into account. But I think before we wrap up, I think, and we already alluded to it partly, a bit of a call for action and reflection, because I think as finance professionals, it's going to be really crucial for us and our teams to embrace the potential of AI and to continuously keep upskilling ourselves, to really stay relevant in this rapidly evolving landscape. So I would call everyone on, take the time to experiment with AI and how it can enhance your organization, but also your role within that organization, so that it can always contribute to the success of everyone. Thank you everyone and thank you guys, Michiel, Nick. Thanks a lot for joining us in this insightful journey into the world of AI. And the future is now, and AR is here to help. And I think that wraps up really the first episode. In our next installment, we will be joined by Thomas de Kuiper, who will be diving into the world of sustainability reporting and then helping us explore the practical strategies for implementation.
Another very relevant and hot topic for CFOs that are listening.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.